don't belong here." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I stood frozen, my hand still on the doorknob, heart pounding in my chest. The words echoed in my mind, replaying over and over. I had just come to visit my son and his new wife, eager to see their new home and spend some time with them. But her words shattered everything. I had always tried to be a good mother-in-law. I had welcomed her into our family with open arms, offering help and support whenever she needed it. But now, standing in the doorway, I felt like an intruder in my own son's life. Before all this, my life was simple. I had raised my son, Mark, with love and care. He was my only child, and I had always been proud of him. We had our little routines, Sunday dinners at my house, phone calls during the week to check in, and the occasional shopping trip together. Life was comfortable, predictable. Then came Rachel. Mark met her at work, and soon they were inseparable. I was happy for him. He had found someone who made him smile, someone who seemed to understand him. They got married quickly, and I was thrilled to see my son so happy. I helped them move into their new home, offering advice on decorating, and even lending a hand with some of the heavy lifting. But as time went on, I began to notice small changes. Rachel started to distance herself from me. She stopped calling as often, and when she did, her tone was curt. She would cancel plans last minute, citing work or other commitments. I tried not to take it personally, but it stung. I missed the closeness we once had. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when I first noticed something was off. I had called Rachel to check in, but she didn't answer. I left a message, asking if she wanted to come over for tea. Hours passed, and still no response. I tried again the next day, but once again, she didn't pick up. I decided to stop by their house, thinking maybe she was just busy. When I arrived, the door was locked. I knocked several times, but no one answered. I felt a pang of worry. Maybe something had happened. I called Mark, but he didn't answer either. I stood there on the porch, drenched from the rain, feeling a mix of concern and confusion. Why were they avoiding me? Had I done something wrong? The truth came out a week later, in the most unexpected way. I had invited Mark and Rachel over for dinner, hoping to clear the air. When they arrived, Rachel's demeanor was cold, her smile forced. Mark seemed uncomfortable, shifting in his seat, avoiding eye contact. After dinner, I asked them what was going on. Rachel hesitated before speaking, her voice trembling. "I'm pregnant," she said quietly. I blinked, processing her words. "That's wonderful news," I said, trying to mask the shock in my voice. "But why the secrecy?" Rachel looked at Mark, who finally met my gaze. "We didn't want to tell you yet," he said. "We were planning to announce it at the family gathering next month." I nodded, trying to understand. "But why avoid me? Why not tell me sooner?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Because I don't want you involved," she whispered. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Rachel took a deep breath. "I don't want you in our lives. I don't want you around our child. You don't belong here." I felt a room tilt around me. I wanted to speak, to demand answers, but the words refused to come. I had raised Mark with love, with patience, with every ounce of care I could muster, and now I was being told I didn't belong in the life I had built alongside him. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the edge of the dining table. Mark's eyes darted to the floor. He opened his mouth, hesitated, and then closed it again. Rachel wiped her tears hastily, her posture stiff, as if every word she had spoken had built an invisible wall between us. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that this was not her house to control, that she could not erase my place in my son's life. But I didn't. I swallowed the lump in my throat, trying to breathe through the ache that was spreading across my chest. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The sound of the clock ticking in the corner felt deafening, marking each second like a judgment. I could hear the faint hum of the fridge, the low rumble of the rain against the windows, and nothing else seemed real. It was as if my life had been reduced to the weight of a single statement. "You don't belong here." Finally, I found my voice. "Rachel," I said softly, "I have always tried to support you. I have never tried to interfere. I only want to be a grandmother to my grandchild, to be a part of Mark's life. Why are you pushing me away?" Her eyes hardened, but I saw a flicker of something, guilt perhaps, or fear. I can't explain it," she murmured, her words trembling. "It's complicated. Just stay out of things, please." I felt a pang of despair, but refused to step back completely. "I'm not leaving," I said firmly. "I have a right to be here. I am your family, whether you like it or not." The days that followed were tense. Every interaction felt strained, every glance charged with an unspoken conflict. I tried to maintain a presence in their home without overstepping, offering help with chores, cooking a meal now and then, or simply sitting quietly in the living room. But Rachel's hostility lingered like a shadow. She would move around me carefully, avoiding eye contact, closing doors behind her, whispering to Mark when she thought I couldn't hear. It was during one of these quiet evenings that I began noticing small, strange behaviors. Rachel would check her phone constantly, often hiding the screen from me. She had started locking her bedroom door, something she had never done before. Even Mark seemed to be on edge, glancing at her nervously and sighing heavily. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, that perhaps they just needed privacy. But my instincts told me there was more beneath the surface. One night, as I was leaving after an awkward dinner, I heard a muffled conversation from the kitchen. I froze, listening intently. Rachel's voice was sharp, and Mark's tone was quiet, almost offensive. "I don't want her involved," Rachel said. "She's your mother-in-law," Mark replied softly. "You can't just erase her. She she'll ruin everything, she snapped. She has to stay out. She doesn't belong here. My heart sank. Every word confirmed the fear that had been gnawing at me. Something was happening, something I had not anticipated, and it had everything to do with Rachel. The following week, I began keeping a subtle eye on the household routines. I noticed small inconsistencies, bills marked as paid that I hadn't seen, packages arriving that I didn't recognize, and a constant undercurrent of secrecy in every conversation between Mark and Rachel. I questioned whether I was being paranoid, but a gut instinct told me otherwise. One afternoon, I decided to check on some documents that were stored in the drawer of the home office, under the guise of helping organize their papers. As I gently opened the drawer, my hands paused over a stack of envelopes addressed to Rachel, marked with urgent stamps. One of them caught my eye. It was a bank statement showing a large transfer of money from Mark's account to an unfamiliar account. My hands trembled as I read the numbers, each figure confirming my worst fears. Rachel was quietly isolating Mark, controlling not just their household but his finances, and by extension their future. The betrayal was not only emotional, it was practical and insidious. I felt a wave of anger rise inside me, coupled with a deep sorrow that my own son had been caught in this situation without knowing it fully. Later that evening, I confronted Mark gently. "Have you noticed anything unusual with your accounts?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. He shook his head, looking weary. "No, why?" I didn't want to alarm him unnecessarily, but I needed him to understand the gravity of the situation. "I think someone is manipulating your finances," I said softly, "and I believe it might be Rachel." Mark's eyes widened in disbelief. "Rachel? That can't be." His voice trailed off, heavy with confusion and hurt. "I know it's hard to accept," I said, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "But I've seen evidence. I want to help you, Mark. Please trust me." The next morning, I decided I could no longer sit silently. I had to confront Rachel directly, to understand her intentions, and perhaps protect my son and future grandchild from further deception. I entered the kitchen where she was preparing breakfast, her movements deliberate, tense. "Rachel," I began, trying to keep my voice steady, "I need to talk to you." She froze, the spatula clattering against the counter. "About what?" she asked, her tone defensive. "About Mark, about the household, and about what's going on with your finances," I said firmly. "I know there's something you're hiding, and I need the truth." Her eyes flickered with panic. She stepped back, clutching the counter. I can't. Why?" I pressed gently but insistently. "We're family. This isn't just about money. It's about trust, about Mark, and about the life you're building with him. You can't push me away with fear and anger. I'm here, and I want to help." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, unexpectedly, she broke down. Tears streamed down her face as she admitted the truth. She had been controlling Mark's money and isolating him from me because she felt threatened, because she feared I would interfere with her plans for the child and the household. Her confession left me shocked, but also strangely relieved. The mystery, the tension, the secret, all were finally out in the open. And yet, the pain of betrayal lingered, not just for me, but for Mark, who looked on with a mixture of confusion, relief, and sorrow. Her tears fell in quiet, uneven streams as she tried to explain herself. "I was scared," Rachel whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought if you stayed too close, you'd take him away from me, from our life. I wanted to protect my child, and I didn't know how." I watched her, a mix of emotions swirling inside me, anger, sadness, compassion. Part of me wanted to scold her, to demand that she acknowledge how cruel her words had been. Yet another part understood the fear of a new mother, the insecurity of someone trying to carve out a place in a family that already existed. I took a slow breath. "Rachel, you don't get to decide who belongs in this family. That's not yours to control. Mark is my son. I raised him, and no matter what, I will always have a place here, with him and, eventually, with my grandchild." She looked at me, startled, as if she had not expected my voice to hold both firmness and calm. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to hurt me, but you did," I said softly. "And now you have a choice. We can move forward, or you can continue to push us away. But you can't erase me from our lives." Mark sat quietly, his head bowed, digesting the storm that had just unfolded in his home. I could see the weight of confusion and guilt on his face. His wife's manipulation had put him in an impossible position. I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm here for you," I said. "Always." The tension in the room was thick, but for the first time, it felt like a door had opened. Rachel nodded slowly, sniffing back tears. I don't want you to go," she admitted in a small voice, almost ashamed. "I want you to stay. I need you." Her words caught me off guard. For so long, she had been the one pushing me away, the one who had drawn the line in the sand. And now, suddenly, she was begging me to remain. It was a strange, almost disorienting reversal. I felt a mix of triumph and caution. I had won the immediate battle, but the war of trust would take time. Over the following weeks, the atmosphere in the house began to shift slowly. Rachel, still fragile and cautious, started including me in daily routines again. She asked my advice on meals, sought my opinion on baby items, and even smiled more freely when I was around. It was tentative at first, but it was progress. I made a conscious effort not to push too hard, giving her space to adjust while keeping a steady presence in the household. I noticed the subtle changes, how she no longer flinched when I entered a room, how Mark seemed lighter, more at ease, no longer caught in the tug of war between his wife and mother. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, when Rachel approached me quietly. She stood a few feet away, hands clasped nervously. I wanted to thank you, she said softly, for staying, even after everything you stayed. And I see now how wrong I was. I paused, leaning on the counter. The aroma of onions and garlic filled the air, warm and familiar, grounding me in the moment. I looked at her, meeting her eyes. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It means a lot. But remember, it's not just about me. It's about all of us, Mark, the baby, and the family we're building together. We need honesty, trust, and respect. That's how we move forward. She nodded, tears glimmering at the corners of her eyes. I understand, she whispered. As the days turned into weeks, small victories began to accumulate. Rachel invited me to help set up the nursery, asking for my input on colors, furniture, and decorations. Mark and I shared quiet moments over coffee in the morning, talking about everything from work to memories from his childhood. The tension that had threatened to fracture our family was easing, replaced by cautious reconciliation. I realized that this experience had changed all of us. Rachel had learned that fear and control could never replace trust. Mark had seen the importance of standing firm while still showing compassion. And I had been reminded of the resilience required to navigate family dynamics without losing one's dignity. One evening, as I tucked Mark into bed for a late-night chat about a small worry he had at work, Rachel approached the doorway. She was holding a blanket for the baby, smiling gently. I'm sorry again, she said, almost shyly. I'll never push you away like that again. I want us to be a real family. I smiled softly, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in weeks. That's all I could ever hope for, I said. The smell of lavender from the blanket and the quiet ticking of the clock created a sense of normalcy I had feared lost forever. There were still moments of tension, brief flashes of old habits and insecurity, but we addressed them together. I learned to set boundaries without being harsh, to assert my presence without overpowering. Rachel, in turn, learned to communicate openly instead of reacting out of fear. Mark became the bridge between us, guiding the household with patience and love. I remember one particular Sunday afternoon when we all sat together for tea. The rain tapped softly against the windows, a gentle backdrop to our quiet laughter. Rachel handed me a cup, her hands slightly trembling. I don't know if I ever told you, she said, but I'm glad you didn't give up on us. On me. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. Family is about weathering storms together, I replied. It's never about one person winning or losing. It's about holding each other up. For the first time, I truly felt that we had crossed the divide. The words that had once cut so deeply, you don't belong here, had been replaced with understanding, remorse, and a desire to coexist as a family. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be, but it was real. Even as life began to settle, I remained vigilant. I had learned that trust could not be rebuilt overnight, and that forgiveness did not mean forgetting. Rachel was making genuine efforts, but I watched carefully, not to judge, but to ensure that Mark and the baby would be safe from manipulation or deceit. One afternoon, I noticed a subtle change in Rachel's behavior again. She seemed quieter than usual, glancing at her phone more often, her smile forced. My instincts told me something was brewing, though I hoped it was nothing serious. I decided to approach it gently. Rachel, I said, catching her in the kitchen as she washed the dishes. Is everything okay? She paused, her hands trembling slightly. Yes, everything's fine, she replied too quickly. I frowned, sensing the hesitation. You don't have to hide things from me, I said softly. We've been through a lot already. Whatever it is, we can face it together. Her shoulders sagged as she let out a long breath. It's about my mother, she confessed. She's coming to visit, and I'm worried about how she'll react to you being here. She doesn't like me talking to anyone about our family problems. I nodded, understanding the fear that often came from trying to protect one's child. I see, I said gently. Well, no matter what, I won't cause trouble. Just remember that our focus should be on your child and our family, not on fear of others. Rachel looked at me, her eyes glimmering with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. The visit from Rachel's mother turned out to be more revealing than I had anticipated. Her mother, a stern woman with sharp eyes, arrived unexpectedly, and her presence immediately altered the energy in the house. Rachel seemed tense, her movements stiff and calculated, while I greeted her politely, extending a hand in goodwill. You've been very involved, her mother remarked, her tone neutral, but with an edge that suggested judgment. I wasn't expecting that. I smiled softly, keeping my voice calm. I'm family. I've always wanted to support Mark and Rachel, especially with a baby on the way. Her mother's eyes narrowed slightly. I see. I hope you know your role, though. Rachel's decisions are hers, and she needs space. I nodded, sensing the tension in Rachel's posture. I realized then that the dynamics weren't just between Rachel and me. They were layered, influenced by the older generation, by fears and insecurities carried across households. Over the next few days, I made a conscious effort to bridge gaps without overstepping. I helped Rachel with small household tasks, joined her in baby preparations, and even offered advice to her mother on organizing meals and routines. Slowly, the atmosphere began to soften. Rachel's mother seemed to recognize my genuine intentions, and even Rachel began to relax in her presence. One evening, a turning point occurred. Rachel had been preparing the nursery late into the night, and I joined her to help arrange furniture. The room smelled faintly of fresh paint, paint and baby powder. Soft music played from a small speaker, filling the space with a calm, gentle melody. Rachel sighed, sitting on the floor and resting her head against the crib. I don't know why I ever felt threatened by you, she admitted. I guess I was afraid of losing my place in this family. But now I see how wrong I was. I sat beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. It's not about taking anyone's place, I said. Family isn't a competition. We are all here to support each other, especially with a new life coming into the world. Tears welled up in her eyes. Thank you for staying, for not leaving, even when I told you to go. I smiled gently. Sometimes, staying is the most powerful thing we can do. It shows love, patience, and resilience. That's how families heal. The days that followed were filled with small, meaningful moments. Rachel began to speak more openly about her fears and insecurities. Mark, too, started to engage more actively, sharing stories from work and childhood, laughing freely again. The household was slowly returning to a rhythm of mutual respect, shared responsibility, and quiet joy. One afternoon, as I was helping Rachel fold baby clothes, she paused and looked at me. I've been thinking, she said, voice trembling slightly. I want to do something for you, something to show you how much your presence has meant to us. I raised an eyebrow, curious. What is it? She smiled shyly. I want you to be the one to read to our baby every night. Your family, and I want our child to know you, to love you, and to trust you. I realized how wrong I was to push you away, and I want to make it right. My heart swelled with emotion. This gesture, small yet profoundly meaningful, symbolized the restoration of trust, the mending of relationships, and the promise of a shared future. I nodded, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I would love that, I said softly. It wasn't an instant fix. Trust, once fractured, takes time to rebuild. But over the next weeks, Rachel's attitude shifted consistently. She began to include me in household decisions, sought my advice, and even asked me to join her on walks to the park with the baby. Mark, witnessing the change, seemed lighter, more relaxed, no longer burdened by the tension that had once dominated their home. I realized that the struggle with Rachel had taught all of us invaluable lessons. Rachel had learned that fear and control were destructive, that openness and trust were far more powerful. Mark had learned to navigate the delicate balance between loyalty to his spouse and maintaining connection with his family. And I had learned the strength required to assert my place gently but firmly, without resentment, anger, or pride. One rainy afternoon, much like the day when this conflict began, I found myself sitting in the living room, watching Rachel play with a baby on the floor. She laughed freely, a sound that had been absent for weeks. I sipped my tea, letting the aroma of chamomile fill the air, and I felt a deep sense of peace. The storm had passed. As the weeks went on, the family home began to feel warm again, like it used before the tension had taken over. Rachel and I still had moments of awkwardness, of course. Trust doesn't rebuild itself overnight, but they became fewer and further between. Instead of sneaking glances at her phone or closing doors behind me, Rachel would ask for my opinion on baby clothes, nursery furniture, and even parenting advice. One evening, Mark came home from work looking tired, his shoulders slumped. He sat on the sofa with a heavy sigh. It's been a long day, he said. I set down my knitting and gave him a gentle smile. I can make some tea, I offered. No, Mom, he said, shaking his head. I need to talk. I followed him to the kitchen. He leaned against the counter, rubbing his face. I never realized how much Rachel had been controlling me, he admitted, voice low. Not just with money, but with everything. I felt trapped, Mom. I couldn't say no without feeling guilty. I nodded, listening carefully. It's hard when someone you love tries to manipulate you, but you're seeing it now, and you're taking steps to change things. Mark looked at me with gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you. You stayed, even when I know it wasn't easy for you. I reached for his hand. That's what family does, Mark. We stay. We don't walk away when things get hard. It was then that Rachel entered the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Mom, I just wanted to say thank you, she said softly, looking at me with a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. I was wrong. I shouldn't have pushed you away. You're going to be important in our child's life, and I want to make sure that happens. Her words made my chest tighten, not with pain, but with relief. The anger, the fear, and the sadness of those first days had given way to understanding and reconciliation. The baby arrived a month later, holding that tiny, fragile life in my arms. I felt a surge of love and protectiveness I hadn't realized I still carried. Rachel watched us from the doorway, her eyes glistening with tears. She stepped closer, her hand gently resting on my shoulder. I can't believe I was so afraid of you, she admitted. You've been nothing but kind, patient, and loving. I was wrong to think you didn't belong here. I smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from the baby's forehead. It's okay, Rachel. What matters is that we're here now, together. We're family, and this little one will always know love from all of us. Mark stood beside us, his hand resting on Rachel's back. I feel like a weight has been lifted, he said quietly. We're finally a family again, and it's stronger than before. Watching them together, I realized something important. The battle with Rachel wasn't about control or victory. It was about trust, communication, and mutual respect. It was about understanding fears without letting them dictate our actions. In the following months, our household became a place of warmth and laughter once more. Rachel invited me into more aspects of her life, life, not because she felt obligated, but because she wanted to. She confided in me about her fears, her anxieties, and her hopes for our grandchild, and I, in turn, offered guidance, support, and reassurance. There were still small disagreements, moments when tensions flared. Rachel would sometimes snap when stressed. Mark would occasionally feel torn between loyalty and comfort, but each time, we navigated the challenge together. No yelling, no resentment, just calm, honest conversations that reminded us of what truly mattered. One Saturday morning, Rachel came into the kitchen, carrying a basket of freshly folded laundry. She hesitated, then placed it on the counter. "Mom, I want to apologize for everything again," she said softly. "For telling you that you didn't belong here, for making things difficult. I was scared, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry." I reached out and took her hand. "It's forgiven, Rachel. What's important is that we've moved past it, and we're learning from it. That's how families grow stronger." She nodded, smiling through her tears. "Thank you for not leaving, for staying, and for showing me what family really is." The baby grew quickly, and every milestone, first smile, first steps, first words, was shared with all of us. I found myself reading bedtime stories, helping with baths, and even taking walks in the park with Rachel and the little one. The sense of belonging I had feared lost forever was now undeniable. I was a grandmother, a mother, and a trusted presence in my son's household. One evening, as I watched Rachel rocking the baby to sleep, I reflected on everything that had happened. The initial confrontation, the betrayal, the tense days that followed, they all seemed distant now, yet the lessons remained vivid. Fear, insecurity, and miscommunication can drive wedges between people, but patience, empathy, and steadfast love can rebuild even the most fractured relationships. Rachel looked up at me, her eyes soft and sincere. "I couldn't have done this without you," she whispered. I smiled, feeling warmth spread through my chest. "And I couldn't have stayed away, Rachel. That's what family is, standing together, even when it's hard." Mark joined us, placing a gentle hand on each of our shoulders. "We're stronger now," he said quietly. "Thanks to all of you, and especially to Mom." I felt tears prick my eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude, love, and healing. The storm had passed, and our family had emerged stronger, closer, and more connected than ever. In the months that followed, our home became a sanctuary of sorts, a place where honesty, care, and understanding flourished. Rachel and I developed a rhythm. She would call me for advice on baby routines, meals, or even home organization, and I would guide her gently, never imposing but always present. Mark, too, seemed lighter, more confident, no longer caught between loyalty and fear. Our family, once fractured, was slowly healing. One rainy afternoon, Rachel invited me to the nursery. The baby was napping, and she wanted to show me the little details she had added. A mobile that played soft lullabies, hand-painted letters spelling the child's name above the crib, and a small bookshelf filled with picture books. "I wanted you to see it first," she said, her voice soft, "because you've been such a part of this, even when I didn't realize it." I smiled, touched by her gesture. "It's beautiful, Rachel, and I'm honored to be included." She looked at me for a long moment. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Would you read to the baby every night? I want them to know you, not just as a grandmother, but as someone they can trust and love. I know I was wrong to push you away before, but I want to make sure it never happens again." Her words warmed my heart. "I'd love that," I replied, "and I promise I'll be here for every story, every milestone, and every tear. I'll be here for them, and for both of you." Life returned to a gentle rhythm. I found joy in the small moments, helping Rachel fold baby clothes, watching Mark laugh at the baby's clumsy attempts to crawl, and sharing quiet cups of tea in the mornings. Each day, the bond between us grew stronger, not by force, but through consistency, patience, and love. One evening, after putting the baby to sleep, Rachel and I sat in the living room. The rain tapped softly against the windows, a comforting, rhythmic backdrop. She reached for my hand. "I want you to know something," she said. "I've learned so much from you, not just about parenting, but about patience, kindness, and family. I was so wrong to judge you, to push you away. I hope you can forgive me." I squeezed her hand gently. "Rachel, forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about acknowledging mistakes and choosing to move forward. You've shown me that you're willing to do that. That's what matters." She smiled through her tears. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." Mark joined us, carrying a blanket for the baby. "Mom," he said softly, "thank you for staying. I know it wasn't easy, especially with everything that happened, but you didn't leave, and it's changed everything for the better." I looked at both of them, feeling a profound sense of peace. "Family isn't always easy," I said. "There are times of conflict, of hurt, of misunderstanding. But love and persistence, those are what keep us together. That's how families heal." Rachel nodded, leaning against me. "I understand now, and I promise I won't let fear drive my actions again. We'll do this together as a family." The baby stirred in the crib, letting out a small coo. I picked them up, cradling them in my arms. Their tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I felt a surge of love and protection that anchored me firmly in the present. This child was the bridge between us, the living reminder that love could endure even after the stormiest days. Over the next few months, we celebrated milestones and shared quiet moments of joy. The first smile, the first crawl, the first laugh, all were moments of collective wonder. Rachel began to embrace me not just as a grandmother, but as a partner in raising her child. She asked for my advice on parenting, parenting choices, sought my opinion on school plans, and even began confiding in me about her fears and hopes for the future. One afternoon, as we walked through the park, Rachel stopped to watch the baby toddle along a path lined with autumn leaves. She looked at me, eyes soft and sincere. "Mom, I never want us to go back to the way things were," she said. "I want this to be our new normal, a family built on trust and love." I nodded, feeling a profound sense of relief. It is our new normal, Rachel, and it will continue to grow stronger every day. We've learned the hardest lessons, and now we can focus on what truly matters, being there for each other no matter what. Mark smiled from behind us, wrapping an arm around both of us. "We've come a long way," he said, "and it feels good. It feels right." As the months turned into a year, I reflected on the journey we had taken together. The confrontation, the betrayal, the tension, and the eventual reconciliation all had left their mark. But more importantly, they had taught us invaluable lessons. That fear and insecurity can drive people to hurt those they love. That standing firm, with patience and dignity, can restore broken trust. That forgiveness, when genuine, opens the door to deeper connections. And that love, consistent and steadfast, is what truly makes a family whole. I watched Rachel and Mark play with a baby in the living room, laughter filling the space once again. It was a quiet, beautiful scene, a family mending itself, step by step, choice by choice. I realized then that the words that had once hurt me so deeply, "You don't belong here," had become a distant memory. They no longer held power over me, because I had reclaimed my place not through confrontation alone, but through patience, understanding, and love. As I sit here now, watching Rachel gently rock the baby to sleep, I reflect on everything that happened, the tension, the fear, the tears, and the slow, steady path toward understanding. It's strange how a single moment, a single word, can shake the foundation of a family. "You don't belong here." Those words cut deep, but what followed taught me more about patience, love, and resilience than any peaceful day ever could. I've learned that family isn't just about blood or living under the same roof. It's about presence, consistency, and the courage to stay even when others push you away. It's about listening, understanding, and standing firm without letting anger take over. And it's about forgiveness, real forgiveness, the kind that allows everyone to grow, heal, and move forward together. Rachel's fear and insecurity once threatened to break us apart, but by choosing compassion over resentment, by showing patience rather than leaving, we rebuilt trust. And in doing so, we created a stronger, warmer family, a home filled with laughter, love, and hope for the future. I share this story not just to tell you what happened to me, but to remind you that even in the darkest moments, it is possible to mend relationships. It takes courage to stay, to listen, and to forgive. But the rewards, the peace, the love, the bond you create are worth every ounce of effort. So, I leave you with this question. When someone pushes you away, when fear or anger threatens to break your family, would you stay? Would you choose patience, love, and understanding even when it's hard? If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone in your life, or gave you hope, please share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories of love, betrayal, and family triumph, subscribe and join us here. You never know which story might change the way you see your own family.